All right, Marissa, so we've really been building up to when the fighting actually gets started. A lot's been going on in Burlington. Now, Margaret says that there was fighting at Petticoat Bridge, and she's getting this information a day after this stuff happens. So what does she say?
Yeah, so on the 23rd of December, she says, this day 12 gondolas
came up the river again, but we know not as yet the occasion of their coming. The troops at Mount Holly went out again today and engaged the Hessians near the same place where they met yesterday. It is reported we lost 10 men and that our troops are totally routed and the Hessians in possession of Mount Holly. This evening, a little alarm in our neighborhood. A report reaching us that
3,000 troops now at Bristol are to cross over in the night and to land on our bank to join the routed party of yesterday.
So this is the 23rd of December, and she's saying Americans are supposed to come across from Bristol. Well, that's George Washington's plan. The troops in Bristol there are Cadwallader's troops. So she's talking about what happened yesterday, but now she's saying, I mean, how does she know?
I don't know.
What?
Well, as we read further on, she knows even more.
Okay, let's hear it.
So she goes on to say that my dear Sarah Dillwyn's spirits for the first time forsook her on hearing this, and my heart grieved that I could offer nothing to compose her. We conjecture the gondolas are to lie here in readiness to receive our men should they be put to fight. Be that as it may, we don't like to see them so near us and wish for another snowstorm to drive them away.
Yeah, that's understandable. I mean, the war is at her doorstep.
Right.
Okay, what else does she say?
Yep, so that's all we hear of her from the 23rd. So then December 24th, she says, the gondolas all gone out of sight, but whether up or down the river we know not. This morning we are told of a fearful alarm which was spread through the town last night, that the gondolas had orders to fire on it in the night, as it was said the Hessians were expected to come in after the rout of yesterday and take possession here as they had done at Mount Holly. Happily, this account did not reach us till it was proved to be false. It seems the Commodore had sent one McKnight on shore, who informed the inhabitants of it. W. Smith and B. Helm went to Bristol in the evening and acquainted General Cadwallader with what they had heard, who signified to the Commodore the necessity of the removal of the fleet, as the ice would probably make it difficult for them to sail a few days hence.
So we know the plan was for Cadwallader to come across at Beverly, I think was the original plan, and he could get across, but he couldn't get his horses and his guns across because of all the ice.
Right.
But again, this is all like really pertinent information. The Hessians would certainly be interested in this. And okay, go ahead.
Yeah. When this was taken to the Commodore, he denied having sent the information, which so alarmed the inhabitants. It was thought he appeared a little disguised with liquor at the time. We hear the Hessians are still at Holly, and our troops in possession of Churchill a little beyond. The account of 21 killed the first day of the engagement and 10 the next is not to be depended on, as the Hessians say our men run so fast they had not the opportunity of killing any of them. Several Hessians in town today. They went to Daniel Smith's and acquired for several articles in the shop which they offered to pay for. 2 were observed to be in liquor in the street. They went to the tavern and calling for rum ordered the man to charge it to the king. We hear that 2 houses in the skirts of the town were broken open by the Hessians and pillaged. The gondolas have been lying down at Dunk's Ferry all this day. A pretty heavy firing heard up the river today, but no account yet received of the occasion or where it was.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. So she's very observant of when guys are apparently drunk.
Yeah.
She makes,
Maybe they're very drunk.
yeah, she makes a big deal of that. So she also says that the information she got about the troops that had been killed was unreliable.
Right.
Because that would certainly, I mean, 20 guys the first day, 21, and then 10 the second. Those are some pretty big numbers for an American force that only numbers 600. But we know that that was bad information. But she does say that the Hessians are in Mount Holly, and then she says the Americans have Church Hill,
Right.
which we know is Ironworks Hill.
Yep.
So she has a lot going on there, but we know now that, so this is the 24th she's writing it, the 25th the Hessians stay in Mount Holly, the 26th they're still there, and of course that's when Washington crosses the Delaware and famously takes Trenton and all the prisoners and everything. So what does Margaret Morris, what does she go on to say in her diary later on after all the troops are, because we know actually, after the Battle of Trenton, Second Trenton, and then Princeton, the enemy, everybody moves away from South Jersey.
Right.
So what does Margaret go on to do and say? And
Yeah, so for the next couple days, she's fairly quiet until December 27th. Where she starts saying that a letter from General Reed to his brother informing him that Washington had an engagement with the regulars on the 25th early in the morning, taking them by surprise, killed 50 and took 900 prisoners. So she's referencing the Battle of Trenton.
Right.
So the loss on our side not known, or if known, not suffered to be public. It seems this heavy loss to the regulars was owing to the prevailing custom among the Hessians of getting drunk on the eve of that great day, which wrought peace on earth and goodwill to men.
So there you go. Even right from the beginning, December 27th, 1776, somebody is saying, oh, the Hessians were all drunk in Trenton.
Right.
Which we know now is probably not the case.
Right.
Maybe she's the arbiter of this misinformation, and maybe that's where it gets started, since obviously she's concerned about people's drinking habits.
Right. It bothers her that they're all drunk, which being a Quaker makes sense.
Right. So what does Margaret do? Now, how long does she keep the diary?
She keeps it until June. Middle of June of 77.
Okay, so there's obviously not a lot of fighting going on at that time. What does she write about in those subsequent months?
Yeah, so some of it she writes about small little battles she's hearing about from secondary sources, third-hand accounts, things like that. Other times she's talking a lot about injuries, wounded soldiers. She starts taking care of some of them that end up in Burlington. She starts talking about disease that's going through the camps, supplies, things of that nature. And
does she live to be a ripe old age? Does Margaret have a long life?
Clear into the early 1800s.
Oh, and what?
She lives for a long time.
Does she do anything special after this?
She does. She goes to Philadelphia during the yellow fever epidemic.
So 1793?
Yeah, she actually goes twice during two different epidemics, I believe in 93 and 96, I think. And she keeps going back and forth between Burlington and Philadelphia, but she always goes where the problem is. So when yellow fever is rampant in Philadelphia, she goes to Philadelphia. And she treats patients. She opens up a small house there where she's bringing in nurses. She learns how to do bloodletting from Dr. Rush. And
so she's acting in the capacity of a physician.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
So Margaret was, she was pretty amazing.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.